When I pushed open the front door, the sky outside was already pitch black. My husband, his mistress, and their so-called illegitimate son were all sitting in the living room waiting for me. They had even planned out how to remove me, the legal wife, from the throne. Little did they know that the older, easy-to-bully woman in their eyes had already gathered evidence strong enough to tear the entire Lawson family apart. They thought they could force me to step aside, force me to sign away everything, force me out of the billion-dollar corporation I built with my own hands. But they didn't know that every insult, every manipulation, every test landed exactly on the traps I had laid for my counterattack. And on the day of that family acknowledgement banquet, when the lights turned on, the evidence dropped, and the police stepped onto the stage, only then did they finally understand. I, Anna Sinclair, have never been the kind of woman anyone can crush beneath their feet. But no one expected the real ending would be even more shocking than that banquet. When I pushed open the front door, the sky was completely dark. The lights in the living room were piercingly bright. Ethan Lawson sat on the sofa, holding a stack of documents. Next to him sat a woman, Melissa Summers. 23 years had passed, yet she had barely aged. Still sweet and delicate, just with a few faint lines around her eyes. Between them sat a young man, around 23, looking vaguely like a younger Ethan. Ryan Summers, the so-called illegitimate son. Anna, you're back, Ethan said, looking up at me. His tone was terrifyingly calm. We need to talk. I set my bag on the entry cabinet and slipped off my heels. At 53, my body didn't bounce back the way it used to. I had spent 5 hours in meetings today. My back was sore. What is it? Can't it wait until tomorrow? I walked into the living room and sat on the single armchair. Melissa shifted slightly, giving me a look I knew all too well, pity mixed with the smug superiority of a victor. She used to look at me like that in college. Back then, I was a scholarship orphan juggling jobs to survive, while she was the campus darling adored by all the boys. Anna, she said softly, Ethan has made some decisions. I hope you can understand. Ethan pushed the documents toward me. I picked them up. It was a legal agreement for the transfer of shares in Lawson Industries, dated 3 months ago. Ethan had transferred 20% of his shares to Ryan, free of charge. What is this supposed to mean? I asked, calmer than I expected. Ryan is my son, Ethan said. I'm 56. It's time to think about succession. You and I never had children. He is the only Lawson bloodline. Melissa added quietly. I know it's unfair to you, Anna, but Ryan and I have lived in the shadows for 23 years. It's been hard for me too. Now that he's grown, it's time for him to come home. So? I asked Ethan. What do you want? He sighed, the kind of self-righteous sigh men give when they pretend to be magnanimous. Melissa and Ryan will be moving in. You'll still be Mrs. Lawson. Nothing in this home will change. We'll just have 2 more people. A threesome? I almost laughed. If you can't accept it. Ethan's eyes turned cold. We can divorce. Legally. Marital assets are split 50-50. Since I already transferred some shares to Ryan, you'll get only 1/3 of the rest. Ryan finally spoke, his tone openly disdainful. Aunt Anna, my dad is doing this for your own good. You're getting older, and your health isn't great. Isn't it nice to have someone help take care of things? I looked at all 3 of them. My husband, the man I once believed I'd grow old with. His mistress, the woman who bullied me in college and stole everything from me. And a boy who came from who knows where. My chest ached sharply, but my expression remained blank. At 20, Ethan and I met at a scrap recycling yard. We were both orphans, with nothing. I remembered the winters when we huddled in a drafty rental room, splitting a single bowl of instant noodles. I remembered when we landed our first big contract, we held each other and cried and laughed. For 30 years, we built Lawson Industries from a tiny scrapyard into a billion-dollar empire. I endured every hardship with him, handled every ruthless client and greedy official. I didn't have children because my health was poor and the company was expanding. He told me it didn't matter, we have each other. That's enough. Turns out, it was all a lie. I need time to think, I said, as calmly as if I were choosing tomorrow's lunch menu. Ethan frowned. What is there to think about? Melissa and Ryan are moving in next month. 3 days. I said. Give me 3 days. Melissa whispered. Ethan, let Anna have some time. It's sudden for her. Always pretending to be considerate. I stood and walked to my room. Only when the door closed behind me did I allow myself to lean against it and breathe deeply. My hands were shaking, but I did not cry. The 53-year-old Anna Sinclair no longer sheds tears for betrayal. I turned on my computer and did 3 things: contacted my most trusted attorney and initiated a full audit of marital assets. Hired a private investigator to dig into Melissa and Ryan's entire past 23 years. Began organizing all evidence of Ethan's malicious transfer of marital property. By the time I finished, it was 2 a.m. I walked to the window and looked out over the city lights. How many stories unfold behind these glowing windows? Ethan Lawson, you think I'm still the naive woman you can push around? You're wrong. The counterattack has only just begun. The next morning when I came downstairs, Melissa was already in the kitchen making breakfast. She wore my apron, used my cookware, and carried herself with the full air of a hostess. "Good morning, Anna," she said warmly, bringing out a plate of neatly arranged eggs Benedict. "I made these for you. Hope they suit your taste." Ethan sat at the head of the dining table, the plate before him identical to mine. He glanced at me with no particular expression. "Sit, eat." Ryan came down in pajamas, deliberately plopping himself into my usual seat, the one facing the garden and morning sunlight. "Mom," he said to Melissa, but his eyes flicked toward Ethan. "I want to buy that sports car today." "Buy it," Ethan said without looking up. "If you like it, get it." Melissa chided gently. "Don't spoil him so much. He's my son. What's wrong with spoiling him?" Ethan smiled, a genuine, affectionate smile I hadn't seen in years. I sat at the far end of the long table, quietly eating my bread and milk. My chef wasn't here today. Clearly, he had been dismissed. "Anna," Ethan suddenly said, "we're having a family gathering today. Some of Melissa's friends are coming. If you're free this afternoon, join us." "I have work," I replied. "What could be more important than family?" His tone carried blame. "You're always like this, work, work, work." That's exactly why we never had children. The word struck like a knife, right in the place I hurt most. Melissa hurried to smooth things over. "Ethan, don't say that. Anna worked hard for the company." Ryan muttered with food in his mouth. "Aunt Anna, you're getting old. You should retire and enjoy life. The company will be in good hands, with Dad and me." The 3 of them echoed each other in perfect harmony. Ridiculous. "Fine," I said. "What time?" They all froze for a moment. Surprised, I agreed. 3 p.m., Melissa said. "Just here at the house. It'll be casual, old friends." I nodded and stood. "I'm heading to the office." As I stepped out the door, I heard Ryan whisper, "See? She's got no backbone. Scare her a little and she caves." Ethan said nothing. My driver, Charlie, was already waiting. "Where to, Ms. Sinclair?" "First, the law firm, then the office," I said, "and contact a few trustworthy media outlets. Tell them I have breaking news." Charlie had worked for me 15 years. He didn't ask why. "Yes, ma'am." My lawyer, David Joe, a college friend and the only attorney I ever fully trusted, read the documents I brought and frowned deeply. "It's bad," he said. "Over the last 5 years, Ethan has transferred huge amounts of assets into offshore accounts under his name. Combined with this stock transfer, if you divorce normally, you'll get maybe 30% of current assets at most." "What if I can prove malicious transfer?" I asked. "That depends on evidence," David said. "But even then, cases like this take time, 6 months to 2 years. I didn't have 2 years. "David, do 2 things for me," I said calmly. "First, file for asset preservation, freeze everything under Ethan's name. Second, prepare materials. I'm suing him for bigamy." David stared at me. "Bigamy? You have evidence?" Melissa lived with him as his wife for 23 years. Neighbors and friends can testify. And they have a so-called son, though a DNA test will confirm that. I slid over the private investigator's initial report. This is their residential record in the suburban villa, with testimonies from security and property staff. David flipped through it, his eyes growing brighter. "Anna, you were prepared?" "I never put all my eggs in one basket," I said calmly. "From the law firm, I went to Lawson Industries headquarters. We built the 68-story tower 10 years ago. It was a landmark of the city. Walking through the lobby, employees greeted me, 'Good morning, Ms. Sinclair.' 'Morning,' Ms. Sinclair, Ms. Sinclair. The morning meeting is moved to 10. I nodded to each and stepped into my private elevator. The woman in the mirrored walls was me, 53, with faint lines around the eyes. Hair neatly pinned, dressed in a tailored navy suit. This was Anna Sinclair, the orphan who built a billion-dollar empire from a scrapyard. My office was on the top floor with a full wall of glass. I stood there, looking out over the city, when my phone rang. Ethan. Melissa's cooking dinner tonight. Come back early, he said, as if giving an order. Okay. And Ryan is reporting to the company today. I told him to start as a vice president. You'll mentor him. My grip tightened. Which department? The executive office, Ethan said. He'll follow you. You're his mother in name, teach him. He hung up. I closed my eyes and took a steady breath. Good. You want to plant your bastard under my nose. Monitor me. And take my power? Fine. At 3 p.m. I returned home as agreed. The living room was full of people, Melissa's friends. Middle-aged women dressed to impress. And a few young men, likely their sons. The moment I stepped in, all conversation stopped. Anna is back, Melissa announced, walking over to take my arm. Come, let me introduce you. This is Mrs. Carter, Mrs. Lee, Mrs. Johnson. Their sons are about Ryan's age. They can all get to know each other. Those women examined me like merchandise. So this is Mrs. Lawson, heard so much about you. Mrs. Sinclair is such a workaholic. Rare to see her at home. You look elegant, but maybe a bit too thin? I smiled politely without responding. Melissa guided me to sit beside her. She took the main seat. Not me. Ethan sat across, laughing with the young men. Melissa is so lucky, Mrs. Carter said. Her son is successful and filial. Unlike mine, just plays all day. Melissa smiled modestly. Ryan's always been well-behaved, even as a child. Ethan says Ryan reminds him of when he was young. Well, of course, Mrs. Lee said. He's his real son. Every word a stab. Suddenly, Melissa turned to me and said sweetly, Anna, I really understand you. A woman without children will feel lonely when she's old. Ryan will be filial to you too, treat him as your own. Everyone looked at me, waiting. I lifted my teacup, took a slow sip, and set it down. Melissa, I said calmly, how old is your son? She blinked. 23. Why? 23 years ago. Ethan and I were already married for 5 years. I met her eyes. So when you became the other woman, you were what, 22? Fresh out of college? The room froze. Melissa's face went pale. Anna Sinclair, Ethan barked. What are you saying? I'm stating facts, I replied. Serene. You were 22 when you snuck into my marriage. Hid a child for 23 years. And now you show up demanding I accept a threesome? That's your idea of filial piety? I just loved Ethan too much, Melissa choked. Enough to destroy someone else's family? I stood. Ladies. The tea was excellent, but I have work to attend to. I turned and left the dead silent room. As I climbed the stairs, I heard Ethan comforting Melissa, and the awkward goodbyes of her friends. In my room, I locked the door and opened my laptop. A new email from the private investigator arrived, confirmed Ryan's birth hospital records show Melissa gave birth to a boy 23 years ago, but he died 3 days later. Evidence also shows that Melissa adopted a newborn boy from the city orphanage 3 days after her child died. The former orphanage director is willing to testify, for a price. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I laughed. So that's how it is, Ethan. Not only did you get cheated on, you raised another man's child for 23 years. What a cosmic joke. Over the following week, Melissa and Ryan officially moved in. My room was on the east side of the second floor. The two of them stayed on the west side. Ethan sometimes slept in the master bedroom, sometimes went to the west wing. I pretended not to notice. Every day, I went to the company as usual, and Ryan really did show up, appointed as vice president on his very first day, with an office right next to mine. He knew nothing, but he walked around barking orders, treating senior staff like servants. Tension spread through the company. Everyone knew he was the heir apparent, so no one dared challenge him. The CFO quietly approached me. Ms. Sinclair. Ryan transferred $30 million yesterday. she whispered. He claimed Mr. Lawson approved it. But there's no project documentation. Give it to him, I said. She froze. But, give him everything he asks for. I repeated. Just make sure the accounting is clean. The staff looked at me with confusion and disappointment. They thought I had given up, that I had surrendered. I didn't explain. Friday night, Ethan announced a family dinner. Mandatory. He booked a private room in the most expensive hotel in the city. Melissa dressed herself up beautifully in the newest couture gown. The diamond necklace on her neck was one I bought at an auction last year. Ethan had said it was a gift for a major client. Turns out the major client was her. Anna. This place is amazing, Melissa said sweetly as she served me shrimp. I ordered all your favorite dishes. I looked at the shrimp and didn't lift my fork. Why aren't you eating? Ethan frowned. Melissa is being thoughtful. I'm not hungry. Ryan snorted. Are you afraid it's dirty? My mom personally served you. Ryan. Don't be rude, Melissa said gently, as if correcting a puppy. She turned to me. Anna. Are you still angry with me? I truly want to get along with you. Ethan is already stressed between us. She paused, then suddenly covered her mouth and turned pale. What's wrong? Ethan panicked. Nausea. Melissa rose shakily. Excuse me, I need to go to the restroom. She hurried out. 5 minutes passed. She didn't return. Ethan asked Ryan to check on her. He rushed back, frantic. Mom is throwing up in the bathroom. She says her head is spinning. Call an ambulance, Ethan shouted. Jumping up, chaos filled the room. Melissa was carried back into the private room, leaning weakly on Ethan's shoulder. Her lips were bluish. Ryan asked sharply, Mom, what did you eat tonight? Then he spun toward me. She only ate one thing you touched, the shrimp you didn't finish. All eyes locked onto me. Ethan's expression shifted from worry to shock to rage. Anna Sinclair. It wasn't me, I said calmly. Who else could it be? Ryan lunged, grabbing my wrist with all his strength. You hate my mom. You wanted to poison her. Pain shot up my arm. Let go, I said quietly. Dad, call the police, Ryan yelled. If anything happens to Mom, she'll pay for it. Ethan looked at me with furious disappointment. Anna, is your hatred really this deep? Melissa was carried out on a stretcher as Ethan and Ryan followed. Before leaving, Ryan glared at me. If she dies, I swear you're dead too. The private room fell silent after they left. A waiter poked his head in nervously. Ma'am, do you need anything? Just the check. During the ride home, I rubbed my wrist, which was swollen and turning red. My phone rang. Attorney David. Anna, Ethan just filed for a restraining order against you, he said urgently. He's claiming Melissa was poisoned. Police may open an investigation tomorrow. As expected, I replied. Are the preparations ready? All set. The notary office is ready. We can proceed anytime. Good. I hung up and watched the city lights blur past the window. Melissa Summers, to force me to sign away my shares. You poisoned yourself? Cruel. I admire the dedication. Too bad you chose the wrong opponent. The next day, Melissa was released from the hospital. The doctor said she had ingested a common medication. A high dose could cause heart arrhythmia, but it wasn't lethal. A stomach pump was enough. When Ethan brought her home, I was reading in the living room. Anna, he said coldly, we need to talk. All right. Melissa lay weakly on the sofa. Ryan stood behind her like a guard dog. The police have opened an investigation, Ethan said. There's not enough evidence yet, but you're the main suspect. Melissa doesn't want to pursue the matter. She's kind, but I won't let this happen again. So what do you want? He took out a document. Sign this share transfer agreement. Give 30% of your shares to Ryan. Then move out. I'll give you money, enough for your retirement. After that, we're done. I took the document and flipped through it. A thick stack of legal traps. The main point, I voluntarily transfer 30% of Lawson Industries to Ryan Summers. And if I don't sign? I asked. Then we go to court, Ethan said. Attempted murder is enough to send you to prison. Your shares will be forcibly divided either way. Melissa sniffled. Ethan, don't be harsh. Anna didn't mean it, Mom. She tried to kill you, Ryan shouted. I looked at the three of them putting on a show, and suddenly, I felt tired. All right, I said. Three jaws dropped. What did you say? Ethan stammered. I said okay. I picked up the pen. I'll sign. A flash of victory crossed Melissa's eyes so fast only I caught it. Ryan didn't bother hiding his grin. But, I added, pausing mid-signature, I want a public acknowledgement banquet. What? Ethan frowned. Melissa has been hidden for 23 years. Ryan has lived as a bastard for 23 years. Now you want them to join the Lawson family. Shouldn't it be done openly? In front of all media, all business elites. Ethan and Melissa exchanged a look. I think that might be too high profile. Melissa murmured. High profile is the point, I said with a cool smile. I want everyone to see how generous I am, accepting my husband's son and gifting him shares. Ryan burst out. Dad, we should do it. This makes me official. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. Fine, but you sign an intent agreement first. No problem. I signed the non-binding intent letter. They didn't understand the difference, or were too confident to care. After signing, I went upstairs to pack. You're really moving out? Ethan asked quietly at the door. What else? I said without turning. Is there still a place for me here? He hesitated. Anna, we did love each other once. I stopped, looked at him. 56. Gray hair, expensive suit. But his eyes were cloudy now, nothing like the young man who once shared instant noodles with me. We loved. I repeated softly. Yes, we did. I closed my suitcase. That afternoon, I moved out of the home I'd lived in for 20 years. I took only a few clothes and essential documents. Charlie's eyes reddened as he carried my luggage. Ms. Sinclair, you're really leaving? Don't worry, I said. I'll be back soon. My new apartment was one I'd prepared long ago, high-end, secure, in the heart of the city. Attorney David was waiting. All arrangements are done, he said. The acknowledgement banquet is next Saturday. Hyatt Ballroom. All major media confirmed attendance. Police will be on standby. And the notary? All 3 notaries will be present. Cameras rolling. Good. I opened the folder. What about the DNA samples? Got them, David said. We collected Ryan's drinking cup and Melissa's hair. Sent them to 3 different labs. Same results, no biological relation. I flipped through the reports, solid. Undeniable. And the orphanage director? She'll testify. Melissa adopted Ryan 3 days after her biological son died. We have records and photos. I closed the folder and leaned back. Outside the window, the sunset painted the city in gold. Anna, David hesitated. About Ethan. After 30 years, you're not sad? I paused for a long time. I'm sad, I said quietly, but more than sadness. I'm furious at myself for being blind. And after this? What's your plan? After this? I looked out the window. I start over. For the next 7 days, I dedicated myself entirely to preparing the acknowledgement banquet, the venue, the floral design, the guest list, the media releases. I handled every detail personally. Melissa tried to insert herself multiple times, but I politely blocked her each time. Melissa, you've worked hard hiding for 23 years. I told her with a gentle smile. Let me handle the small things. Just show up looking beautiful. She basked in the feeling of being the official wife at last, and stopped insisting. Ethan, delirious with satisfaction, even posted a photo of the family of 3 on social media, him, Melissa, and Ryan, with the caption, Reunion. Grateful. Friends flooded the post with likes and blessings. No one asked about me. Ryan became even more arrogant. He drove his new sports car recklessly around the company parking lot. He switched secretaries 3 times in a week. Not pretty enough was his only reason. He approved over a dozen projects. All money pits, but the finance department didn't dare reject him. Employees were miserable. A few longtime executives came to me privately. Ms. Sinclair, if this continues, the company will collapse. Hold on, I told them. It'll be over soon. They thought I meant after the banquet. They left disappointed. But I meant, this circus will collapse on their heads very, very soon. The day of the banquet. Hyatt Grand Ballroom. Crystal chandeliers blazed overhead. Fresh flowers covered the carpet from the entrance to the stage. Every major business leader, politician, philanthropist, and celebrity in the city was present. And a sea of media. I wore a simple navy gown, no flashy jewelry. At 53, I wasn't as radiant as Melissa, but the poise I'd earned over decades in the business world was something money couldn't buy. Ms. Sinclair, incredible, an old business partner whispered as he walked in. What composure, truly admirable. I smiled. You're too kind. Ethan, Melissa, and Ryan made a grand entrance at the peak of the event. Melissa wore a white diamond-studded gown, like a bride. Ryan looked smug in a white suit. Ethan walked proudly between them, smiling as if he were the king of the world. Cameras flashed non-stop. Mr. Lawson, is it true Anna Sinclair is gifting shares today? Melissa, how does it feel to finally be acknowledged? Ryan, what's it like to become heir to a billion-dollar group? Ethan answered every question with elegant charm. When he looked at me, his gaze held a mixture of guilt and relief that he would soon be rid of me. The banquet began. The host delivered a beautifully packaged story of the Lawsons' family reunion. Melissa gave a tearful speech about her secret 23 years, her unwavering love for Ethan, and her gratitude for my generosity. The room applauded thunderously. Then it was my turn. I walked onto the stage, the spotlight hitting me squarely. The hall grew quiet. Thank you all for being here today. I began, my voice steady. As you've heard, my husband, Ethan Lawson, has a woman who has lived in the shadows with him for 23 years and a 23-year-old son. Soft murmurs rippled through the hall. For 23 years, I knew nothing. I continued. I only learned the truth a month ago, when Melissa Summers and her son moved into my home. The audience gasped. Ethan's smile froze. Melissa turned pale, clutching her skirt. Ryan looked confused. I nodded subtly. The staff dimmed the lights and turned on the giant screen. Slide 1, the stock transfer documents. Ethan transferring 20% of Lawson Industries to Ryan illegally. 3 months ago, I said. Mr. Lawson transferred marital assets without my knowledge, an act legally considered malicious asset transfer. Ethan shot to his feet. Anna, what are you? Let the evidence speak, I said calmly. The audience buzzed like a beehive. And now, I continued, in front of everyone here, I will reveal 3 important truths. Attorney David stepped onto the stage, followed by 3 uniformed notaries. Gasps echoed around the ballroom. The notaries will record the entire process, I announced. Ethan's face drained of color. First, I said, regarding Ryan's identity. I gestured. A new document appeared on the big screen. 3 different lab reports. Ryan Summers, probability of paternity with Ethan Lawson, 0%. The ballroom exploded. People jumped from their seats. Reporters screamed for angles. Flashlights burst like fireworks. No! No! Ryan shrieked. That's fake. Dad, it's fake. Ethan's face turned ashen. He stared at the screen, trembling, disbelief twisting his features. He turned to Melissa, voice cracking. You lied to me? Melissa collapsed into her chair, shaking. Second, I said, Melissa's child. The screen changed again. Hospital records, death certificate, orphanage logs, the testimony of the former orphanage director. 23 years ago, Melissa Summers did give birth, but her son died 3 days later. 3 days after his death, she adopted a newborn boy from the city orphanage. I paused. That boy was Ryan. The room fell silent, then erupted even louder than before. You raised a stranger's child for 23 years, I said softly to Ethan. A child neither you nor Melissa share blood with. A child she used to deceive you and steal your assets. Ethan let out a terrifying roar and lunged at Melissa. You bitch! You lied to me for 23 years. He grabbed her by the throat. Security rushed up to pull him away. Ryan stared in horror, then snapped and attacked Melissa too. You lied to me too? You're not my mother? Why? Why did you pick me? The ballroom turned chaotic. Reporters were ecstatic. This was the scandal of the decade. I simply lifted the mic. Quiet. A strange calm swept the room. Third, I said, Ethan Lawson is under investigation for malicious asset transfer and bigamy. Police officers entered the ballroom. They walked straight to Ethan. Mr. Lawson, the lead officer said, showing a warrant. You are required to come with us for investigation. Handcuffs clicked shut around Ethan's wrists. He looked up at me, hatred twisting his face. Anna, you're vicious. I met his gaze. Not as vicious as you. The officers dragged him away. Melissa tried to follow but Ryan shoved her to the ground. Get away from me. You ruined my life. Media frenzy continued. Cameras flashed wildly. Chaos ruled the ballroom. I stood alone on stage, watching this entire empire of lies collapse. For the first time in 30 years, I felt free. The next month, the entire city couldn't stop talking about the Lawson scandal. Every detail was exposed: how Melissa went from college sweetheart to a lifelong mistress, how she fooled Ethan for 23 years with a fake son, how Ethan transferred assets behind my back, how I quietly gathered evidence and detonated everything at the acknowledgement banquet. Lawson Industries stock fluctuated violently, but I had already prepared. 1 week before the banquet, I secretly acquired circulating shares through offshore accounts. Combined with my existing shares, I regained controlling power. The board held an emergency meeting. Unanimous vote, I was reinstated as chairwoman and CEO. Ryan was fired on the spot. His fancy vice president title vanished. The legal process moved quickly. Ethan was charged with malicious transfer of marital assets, over $800 million worth. The evidence was overwhelming. He soon pled guilty. Out of 30 years of marriage, and for the sake of public image, I dropped criminal charges. But I demanded full return of all diverted assets. The court agreed. All of Ethan's property, his homes, savings, stocks, was frozen, liquidated, and returned to the marital fund. Ethan Lawson went from billionaire to broke overnight. Melissa's crimes added up: bigamy, fraud, forging documents, knowingly using a fake child to deceive for financial gain. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison. All her luxury items, bags, jewelry, real estate, were repossessed as part of the asset return. Those diamond necklaces and gowns she used to flaunt? Gone. Ryan's collapse was the most pathetic. He had lived as a hidden rich heir for 23 years. He thought he was destined to inherit billions. Then, all revealed to be a lie. His sports car, condo, and bank accounts were seized. They were all bought with fraudulent funds. He tried to storm Lawson Industries to confront me. Security threw him out. Reporters captured him screaming on the ground, face twisted in rage. The next day, that photo was on the front page. Fake heir's meltdown on the streets. Tragic, but frankly, unsurprising. A month later, Ethan finished the initial investigation and was released. He had nowhere to go. All his so-called friends avoided him. He found a room in a basement apartment and survived on odd jobs. One morning, Charlie informed me, Ms. Sinclair, Mr. Lawson is downstairs. He wants to see you. I paused, then said, send him up. He entered my bright, spacious office, a shadow of the man he used to be. He wore a faded jacket, his hair messy, his posture bent. He looked like a broken man standing in a place he no longer belonged. Anna, he began, voice rough. Do we really have to end like this? 30 years of marriage, how can you be so heartless? I set down my pen. Ethan, I said evenly, you betrayed me first. You brought your mistress and bastard into our home. You forced me to sign away shares. You tried to send me to prison. I was confused. He shouted. That woman tricked me. She said Ryan was my son. She said she loved me. So that justified everything you did? I asked. He opened his mouth but nothing came out. I continued, you never loved me, Ethan. You loved the girl who suffered with you, who helped you build everything. Once you succeeded, you wanted someone younger. Melissa fit your fantasy. No. Anna, please, we can start over. It's too late. His face twisted. I'm living in a basement. Anna, eating instant noodles. I haven't had a proper meal in 3 days. You won't even help me a little? I looked at him quietly, then opened a drawer, took out an envelope, and placed it on the table. $2,000. Take it. He stared at the money, his face flushing with humiliation. You think I'm a beggar? Aren't you? I asked. He trembled with rage, finally snatching the envelope. As he turned to leave, he spat. Anna Sinclair, you will get what's coming to you. Ethan, I said softly, your retribution has already arrived. He staggered out of my office. I watched his hunched figure disappear into the elevator. 30 years of love and hate, broken off clean for $2,000. A bargain, really. Once everything settled, I made a decision. I retired. The board was shocked and tried hard to keep me, but my mind was already made up. I'm 53. I told them calmly. I've fought for this company for 30 years. Now, I want to live for myself. I handed management over to a professional executive team. I remained only as a board director and major shareholder. The dividends alone would let me live a luxurious life for decades. On my last day at Lawson Industries, the employees gathered on their own to send me off. The CFO, a woman who had been with me for 20 years, hugged me and sobbed, "Ms. Sinclair, without you, there would be no Lawson Industries, and no us." I patted her shoulder gently. "It's your company now. Take good care of it." When I walked out of the tower, the sun was warm. I looked up at the skyscraper I helped design and build. I felt no sadness, only peace. I started traveling. I visited the snow-covered mountains in Montana, breathing the icy, clean air on the peaks. I went to small lakeside towns in the Midwest, where wooden boats glided under stone bridges, and waterbirds skimmed across the surface. I crossed the desert in Nevada and lay under a sky so full of stars it felt unreal, the Milky Way bright enough to fall into my hands. I stayed by a lake in the Pacific Northwest for a whole month. Every morning, birdsong woke me. I read, watched the clouds, enjoyed the silence. I met a young woman who ran a small boutique lodge nearby. She was 30, from New York, had quit a high-paying job to live quietly by the lake. She told me, "Anna, you're the coolest woman I've ever met." Maybe I was. I signed up for photography lessons, bought an expensive camera, and learned to capture landscapes and portraits. I enrolled in French classes. I had always dreamed of going to Paris. I even studied painting. I was terrible at it, but my instructor praised my emotional expressiveness. Turns out, outside the business world, life had so many possibilities. A year later, in a traditional tea house in Portland, I sat sipping warm tea when my phone rang. Attorney David. "Anna, I have news." I set down my cup. "About Ethan," he said slowly. "Something happened." "What happened?" "Ryan found him after getting out of jail," David said. "He'd been demanding money from Ethan, and last week, they had a fight. Ryan stabbed him." I closed my eyes for a second. "Is he dead?" "No, but the injury was bad. Ethan's spinal nerves were damaged. The doctors say he'll be paralyzed for life." David paused, then added, "Ryan was arrested again. This time it's felony assault. He'll be in prison for at least 10 years. "What about Melissa?" I asked. "She was released 3 months ago. She's the one taking care of Ethan now. They live on welfare and small donations from charity groups." He sighed deeply. "It's poetic, in a way. Retribution." "I understand," I said quietly. After hanging up, I finished my tea. Golden sunlight shimmered through the bamboo blinds, dancing across my table. At the next table, a young couple was chatting. The girl complained about being tired at work. The boy comforted her gently. I remembered many years ago. Ethan and I were like that, sharing cheap noodles, dreaming about the future. Back then, we had nothing, but had everything. Now, we had everything, but ended with nothing. Correction, Ethan lost everything. I didn't. I still had my health, my freedom, my wealth, my future. A server approached softly. "Ma'am, would you like a refill?" "No, thank you," I said with a smile. "I'll take the check." I walked out of the tea house into a lively Portland street. I bought a ticket to Alaska for the next morning. Someone asked where I planned to go afterward. I said, "I don't know, wherever the road leads." Life is long, and I will never pause for anyone again. Sunlight warmed my face. I closed my eyes and let it touch me. For the first time in decades, I felt truly, completely alive. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any thoughts about this story, feel free to share them in the comments section. Here is Roses and Love, sharing stories about marriage and women every day. See you tomorrow.